The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me on this Monday evening. It's great to be here. Anytime the Tennessee Titans win, it always sets up a great narrative as the week goes on. Just a dominating performance on all three phases of the ball. We're definitely going to talk about that today. My special guest today will be Christopher Newell of Titans and Truth. I haven't heard from him yet, but I've sent a link, and I'll keep checking in periodically to make sure he shows up. I'm sure everything's fine. He's just running late, or there's a situation on my end, so I'll continue to keep monitoring that. But we're going to definitely get him in as soon as possible. But in the meantime, we've got a lot of football to talk about today. Definitely got to get to the game yesterday. Just an amazing performance once again by the Tennessee Titans. I can't say enough positive things, and especially setting up the narrative for the upcoming matchup with the Colts on the road next week. So, I'll start first that I ended up going to the game yesterday, and it was a great experience. Anybody that's ever gone, you just enjoy the experience of it. You enjoy the camaraderie. You enjoy the fans. You enjoy just the smell of barbecue and the sound of beer pouring in plastic cups. It's just great. Everything about it is worth the trip in itself, especially when you can go and just leave bragging about a very productive win from your team. And I'll say this for Kansas City fans. I had a very good interactions with the fans there. They're very good people. I enjoyed talking football with them. Even when things were going wrong, they just kind of shrugged and just were kind of looking forward to next week as soon as they kind of figured it's kind of getting out of hand. So, really great people. Really enjoyed conversating with them. And they're very appreciative of their history. And it's always good to talk to fans that have that kind of knowledge and appreciation. And the Chiefs have a deep appreciation for what they have historic-wise with their football team. And I have to say, the whole experience, it's just something you just savor and you enjoy. And honestly, it was my wife's first game yesterday. And she had never been to an NFL game before. And it was a little overwhelming, but she started to enjoy herself as the game went on. As I'm sure some of us, generally that goes without saying. It can be a little intimidating for some people, but that's all right. I'm just glad that I was able to bring someone that I truly care about and wanted to share the experience with. So we definitely had a great time there. We had a great time with the fans. Once again, everybody was great. And I'll definitely have more pictures coming up as the week goes on. So I will definitely get those going. I wish I would have had more interviews to give, but I just didn't have the proper equipment to do it. So that was unfortunate. And a shout out to Titans Rossi and Titans Time Podcast. We ran into each other, and it was just good meeting up with those guys. I really enjoy talking to them, and I really just enjoy being on their shows and vice versa. Just great football-minded people. And, just today, all in all, it was great football weather. Everybody was in a great mood, and everybody left in a great mood. So it sets the narrative for everything. And jumping into the comments section, it seems we've got one from Bryce Pratt. How you doing, Bryce? Good having you on the show. And he asked, how was the game yesterday? And, well, basically that was it. It was just a good experience all around. And once again, it was a sellout crowd. I'm very happy with that. I know a lot of people are upset that Kansas City kind of invaded, and there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, we can try and block the ticket sales, but in circumstances like that, it's always a situation where, when these guys get their hands on their tickets, they're going to make sure that they can get as many of their people in the stand as well, because they've got a very big followed fan base, just like Buffalo did, so we knew that was coming. But it's nothing that I was too concerned about. I mean, we can only do what we're going to do in terms of just making sure our fans get in the seats. And I think it's just going to be a little easier, especially if the Titans can continue the streak of good luck and taking care of business right now the way they are. There's a reason why they're 5-2. So it's just a situation of continuing just the trend of winning. And winning cures all, so I don't think that's going to be too big of a problem. And we'll definitely talk about the game a little bit more as we go along. But first, we've got top news to drop on. Let's break it down, and I'm heading towards the little screen in just a second. So, breaking into our top news right now. Got pretty good stories, 5 stories of interest today, and let's break them down. Dropping in a little screen, let's go. Starting out, we got a Monday Night Football game, and this is a pretty good one. Even with questionable injuries right now on both sides, definitely fans are really interested in seeing the Manning brothers come back, bringing Manning football right back on the screen. It's going to be very enjoyable. I enjoy watching what they do, and they've given a fresh perspective on Monday Night Football. So I think along the lines with this matchup, you've got the Seahawks against the Saints right now. And I would say at the moment, Seattle has a lot of injuries as well as the Saints. But you feel the Saints are going to have the edge here, especially with Jameis Winston playing quarterback tonight, which that's obvious. But I think along the lines, you have to have consistency there. And Winston's struggled with that most of his career. The strongest point he's had is he's got a good arm, but it's an uncontrolled arm at best. It's almost like having a pitcher with a wild arm. You know, he's going to get you about maybe a 95 or a 98 fastball, but it's an uncontrolled fastball. And that's just how I've always seen Jameis Winston. You know, he's one of the most uncontrolled, controllable players, if that makes any sense. So I like the matchup here, and I think, as I mentioned last week, injuries have been horrible to the Seahawks, and it just seems like that if they can get through these last couple of weeks, Russell Wilson should get back, and maybe they'll still have a chance to get back into this thing. With the Saints, it's injuries as well, so both teams are really just kind of beat up going throughout the whole process. So you got to pick the two less evils in this scenario. So I stuck with the Saints last week in the picks, and I'm going to continue to roll with them tonight. I think it's a low-scoring game. I think the Saints are going to have a lot of trouble trying to run the ball, because I think the Seattle defense is pretty stout. But I do give the edge here to the Saints. I think the consistency is going to show up for Jameis Winston. I think he'll take care of business. So give me Seattle here, losing to the New Orleans Saints. That's going to be the final game. And I'll even throw in a score. Saints win it 27-21 overall. Moving on to our next story. And unfortunately for the Green Bay Packers, this is a pretty rough one. As Davante Adams has been tested positive for COVID and is now on the COVID list, he will be out for a remaining period until he can get a negative test at the time. And for Green Bay fans, I know this is rough, especially now that Green Bay has a very, very important matchup coming up this week. Key matchup. If I can find who they're playing. You try and save some of these and they just run off on you. Well, there we go. It's a Thursday night game against the Arizona Cardinals. So the undefeated Arizona Cardinals matching up against the Green Bay Packers. So a huge blow to them, losing a key piece of their offense. And as good as Aaron Rodgers is, the Cardinals have been even better. So, retrospectively, I feel Green Bay could be all right in the next couple of weeks, depending on if he could get back on the field, especially after protocol is taken care of. But I know this Arizona game is definitely going to be a little difficult against them. And let's face it, Arizona's been a juggernaut as soon as they step out on the field. You just get the sense that this is a team that's really just dominating on all three sides of the ball. Defensively, they've been a nightmare, and especially with Chandler Jones coming back from being on the COVID list, that just gives them more depth back. And Kyler Murray's just been lights out impressive. And he's also made somewhat of a good argument for possibly being in the MVP runnings. without a doubt, Arizona is definitely going to give Green Bay some fits without their key player, but Aaron Rodgers has very good accuracy with his receivers and especially just a relationship with them. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out during the weeks, but unfortunate for Green Bay. Hopefully they can get him back as soon as possible, and hopefully it won't cost them any games down the road. Our next news story, moving on. From a report on Bleacher Report, it appears that it was said that in terms of the head coaching search for USC, one name popped up for Carson Palmer. And while he was on the Dan Patrick show, he mentioned that he would like for Mike Tomlin to take the job if he would want it. And that would be an interesting choice. And Tomlin has no ties to USC whatsoever. If anything, he's been more involved at one university at one time. I believe it was Arkansas State. And he worked multiple positions on that team. And he's a graduate, I believe, of William and Mary. So he has no ties to USC, which makes this interesting. But what's also interesting is I wonder if the USC could offer him enough money to leave the NFL. I don't think that he couldn't succeed in a setup of working in a college football environment. I think players like playing for him, and I think he's got good setups. I just think the Steelers generally just have like rotten luck, especially when the season kind of moves forward. So the bigger question is it more enticing for Mike Tomlin to move forward if the offer's good enough? USC's trying to get this man who's put up 154 wins, 87 losses, and a tie in his long-tenured NFL career. And it's not unheard of that veteran NFL coaches have gone to college. I mean, in some instances, it's worked. Pete Carroll actually had tried coaching on the NFL circuit before he opted to go to USC, and that worked out well. And he had no ties to the school, but it worked out. It was one of those situations. So I look at Mike Tomlin, and if things just fall apart with the Steelers, and there's a lot of question marks coming up, really within this year and the next couple of years down the road. You need to find a replacement for Ben Roethlisberger. Is Juju Smith-Schuster going to stay around? You know, is the defense going to stay intact? You have other key guys coming up for free agency, namely trying to keep them in place. So the biggest thing is you're trying to handle business. And would it be a bad idea to look down the road if you're Mike Tomlin? I don't think so. But I would encourage him, to weigh your options. But if I had to take a guess, I'm guessing Mike Tomlin stays within the NFL. He's made a great career out of it. He's won a Super Bowl, been to 2. And, I mean, really, he's going to stay until he's ready to go or the Steelers decide to move on in a different direction. But long-term wise, I think USC would be best looking more in the ranks of someone that's a better fit for their system. And Mike Tomlin, to me, he's a great players coach, but I just don't see him making the jump to college. But an interesting take from Carson Palmer. Our next news story, one of interest that just broke, and let me fix this. This just broke merely an hour ago, and it would appear now that the New York Jets have traded for Joe Flacco to be their quarterback in exchange for a 6th-round pick, and if Flacco plays more games than he's opted to, it will be a 5th-round pick going to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Joe Flacco, once again, is just at this point, he's a journeyman. And it's crazy how far he's gone from being considered an elite quarterback to becoming the journeyman that he is. And the Ravens just showed that if you put a good system around the right guy, and Flacco was that guy at the time, it was inevitable that he could be successful. And he had a lot of weapons around him in the early 2010s. So a lot of people discussed and debated this for years, even when he had won the Super Bowl. Flacco, to me, just seemed like a great player, just with good people around him and in a good system. So I think for this move to the Jets, it's very beneficial, especially they don't know how long Wilson's going to be out for the long term, unless I've just missed that completely. But I look at this story, and I think for the Jets, especially moving forward, you get a guy with some veteran presence. You've got some good pieces around him. You've got a pretty good offensive line. So I don't think it's a bad move. I think it's a good situation that he's coming in. He's not going to be the player that he was in the 2010s. That's just not going to happen. But I think if you're the Jets, you're trying to scrap anything that you can with this season. You're trying to play for some pride. It's going to be a long way to try and get to the finish line on this one. So you've got a guy that's got experience. I don't think it's a bad thing having Joe Flacco. I just think it's a good thing, especially for some of the guys you have coming up, that maybe you could get in some games and keep it a little close, maybe even win a couple. I don't think it's out of the question. But you definitely got a guy that can get the job done. So good for Joe Flacco. Hopefully that works out for him. Hopefully he can get some plays and maybe have a little last spark before his career is finished. And then in our final news story, we had another trade of interest. Once again from Bleacher Report, breaking this down, when Mike Evans had thrown Tom Brady's 600 touchdown pass to a fan, not realizing what he did, it was obvious the fan was going to have to be talked to try and see if he would give the ball up. And from what I was reading, apparently to get this ball back, the fan received a different game ball. He received a $1,000 gift card from the Buccaneers Pro Shop. He was promised a helmet, a couple of jerseys, and quote-unquote something really nice in return. This was said by Tom Brady. And a lot of people have gotten on this dude for letting go of the ball, saying he could have sold it for a lot of money. It's a piece of history. He shouldn't have let it go. I respect the man for giving it back to Tom Brady. It was Tom Brady's accomplishment, and he rightfully deserves to have it. I see it as any time an athlete breaks anything in sports that's probably going to be a record for a long-standing amount of time, they worked hard for that accomplishment. And like it or not, that's Tom Brady's accomplishment. So for the fan just asking for so little in return, and really, that was not a lot to ask for, because he probably could have gotten anything from anybody or any sports trader. So I applaud the man for just not getting greedy and just showing that, he's appreciative of what Tom Brady's doing in his career. And it was a nice gesture to just give that to him just for so little. So I applaud the man, and anybody hating on this guy for just trying to do something decent, that's fine. You can be upset about it, but don't bug the guy because he felt he did the right thing. People aren't out there just trying to make a buck. Sometimes you're just happy to be around for the situation at hand. And I applaud the man for just being decent and just giving the ball back. So I tip my hat to you, sir. And I hope you do get something nice from what Tom Brady said. Well, guys, alrighty. It's good to get the top news out of the way. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick little break. And when I come back, we're going to discuss Titans and Chiefs, break down everything that happened, talk about just every little detail of how this was probably the most dominant game the Titans have played all season long. I'm Michael Bishop of the Power Hour, and we'll be back in 30. The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming to you on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me this Monday evening. It's great to have everybody watching the show tonight. Our special guest was supposed to be Christopher Newell of Titans and Truth. I've sent him a link, and I'm hoping he'll hook up soon. I will do my best to make sure and see that he got the link. I'm doing everything as I can right now. I mean, these things happen. But at the moment, we're just trying to make sure that he has the proper link to get set up. And we'll keep continuing to monitor that. So I'm hopeful I can get him in before we get any further with the show. But we'll keep trying. So hopefully everything works out. Well, all right, guys. I am more than happy to get going with this breakdown of the Titans and the Chiefs last night. Great feeling getting the game under our belts against what was considered an elite team coming in this year. Super Bowl contending even. And you get the feeling that going into this game, once again, Tennessee's being counted out. And it was no surprise. Everybody's going to get their lumps in. Everybody wanted to make sure, well, this is going to be probably the letdown, and it's going to show the fraud team that Tennessee is. Well, surprise, surprise. The Titans show up, and they handle business. Going out and playing all three sides of the ball, offense, defense, and special teams, dominating on all of them, and handing Kansas City a humiliating loss. Probably the worst one they've had this season thus far. Shout out to Tighten Up Podcast. Let's tighten up. Yes, sir. Definitely had a good time at that game. Hope you enjoyed yourself as well. I know watching the game, it was an amazing experience just to see how fast that this team got started. And I really feel more confident, especially with Todd Downing helming the offense. You get the sense that everything's starting to click now. And you look back at the first couple of games, and the few things that stand out was the inconsistent offensive line play, the fact that we weren't getting a lot of passing downfield, and especially trying to defend pressure. It seemed like we were missing easy passes, and finally it was just penalties. It seemed we were just giving up too many penalties. And as the season progressed, you just got the sense that everything was going to get a little better, but unfortunately, we had a gauntlet of 5 games coming up where everything was going to be very racking and very just disturbing, especially there is a good core of teams that are possibly Super Bowl contenders. So starting out, we go with the Bills. We keep it a close game, and we end up winning that game. And then the Kansas City Chiefs come into Nashville. And knowing the Chiefs, you knew you were going to have your hands full with Patrick Mahomes. He was going to run the ball if he had to. He was nimble, and if he could find anybody downfield that was open, he can usually hit them. This wasn't the case Sunday. He was consistently under pressure. He consistently underthrew receivers, or overthrew them at times. And the ones that he hit, some were pretty impressive. But it felt like the ones that he missed were usually just routine ones that Kansas City would make. So, unfortunately, the narrative today is that people aren't saying that the Titans are a good team, at least on some levels. You have some markets out there that are saying, well, what's wrong with Kansas City? What's wrong with their defense? Why is Patrick Mahomes struggling like this? Well, those are good questions. But you just can't ignore the elephant in the room. And that elephant is basically, why are the Titans excelling right now? Especially at the beginning of the season, there were huge question marks moving forward. And there still are some question marks. Injuries is still a concern. Some penalties are still a concern. The offensive line's playing a little better. Especially in the last few games, you definitely have the sense there's a lot more comfortability for Ryan Tannehill playing in the pocket. But that's not the narrative that the news wants to sell you. They wanted to focus on that there's something wrong with Kansas City. They wanted to sell that Patrick Mahomes is just not the same player he is. That there's a lot of struggles within the Kansas City organization right now. And I don't know that to be true or not, but I do know one thing. I will agree with them in some sense, yes. This isn't the same Chiefs team we're used to seeing in the last 2 years. So what's changed? Really, not a lot. I think once you have the sense of a quarterback that's mobile, like Mahomes is, and is able to throw on the fly, a lot of the plays that he uses are very predictable. It's just they get you where they want you, and then he makes the play he needs to. It's not a situation of Mahomes not playing at the level that he's used to playing. I think he was for most of the game. For the ones that he missed, I think really just what stood out to me, they were very routine plays. They were little dump-off passes that the receiver was trying to reach at his feet. You saw the defense adjust very well accordingly and make him uncomfortable. And if he did scramble, there were little chunk yards that he'd get, but there were also some plays that he was able to move and make with his feet. But one other thing I don't think people are talking a lot about is Kansas City really killed themselves with penalties. One drive obviously was, I believe, right around maybe the second quarter, they were driving down the field, and then they kept getting backed up, I think, on consecutive holding penalties. So the offensive line definitely was an issue for that game. But you also have to understand, as Mahomes continues to progress as a player, a lot of the same plays that he uses are his go-to plays. And really along the lines, defenses are very well adjusted. One thing you learn as a defensive coordinators, when you have a younger quarterback come in the league, it's hard to figure him out because you don't know what his top go-to plays are. You don't know who his check down guy is. You don't know mainly a lot of his athletic abilities because you only see them in spurts. The thing is with Mahomes now, it's become a little more predictable. And that's very much one of the things why I think the Kansas City offense has struggled like they've had. It's very much predictability along the lines of just him making fantastic plays. And I'm not saying he's not. You know, if he has to in a jam, Mahomes is one of the best guys in the league that can make something out of nothing. But what are those plays? Usually it's one of his guys getting down and trying to shake off one of the tight ends. Usually one of the tight ends, or usually one of his extra wide receivers trying to shake off a corner or a linebacker. Usually most of the time it's a linebacker. So especially if you have Tyreek Hill or if you have Kelsey, you've got two guys that are able to break free and make plays. And teams have caught on to that. And while Kansas City does have other weapons in the mix right now, I believe their other wide receiver, Pringle, he was the one that had the most catches yesterday. While Kelsey and Hill right at the moment were very quiet in the first quarter. Other than that little pitch back, that was all we really heard from them. They got a little more involved as the second quarter progressed, but it just seemed like the damage was done. So along those lines, I give so much praise to the defense that came out and just balled out. This was, without a doubt, probably one of the best defensive stands they've had all year. And there's a lot more games to play, but I just really applaud this team for actually settling in and getting comfortable with the scheme. You can already tell there's a lot of change. This defensive line has come leaps and bounds from what they were last year. They're still trying to get consistent pressure on the quarterback, but they're getting there, and that's the difference maker. And D'Amico Autry, to me, is without a doubt the best signing the Tennessee Titans had that wasn't named Julio Jones. You saw a guy who had been on and off two different teams, been able to make some plays and really just, I don't think, had an opportunity to showcase his talent. And you find a guy that works in this defense and is very much easy to move around. He can get guys uncomfortable. He can get off the offensive line very quickly. And he's just able to get to any quarterback that he's had an opportunity to get to. Autry, to me, is just the perfect defender. He's a Swiss Army knife of a player. And those are the kind of guys Vrabel likes. And those are the guys I think have the most success in the NFL. Anyone that's versatile and has an opportunity to do these things moving forward, they tend to have a little more success. And they're a little underrated. So I was very surprised that we were able to get Autry when we had him when we signed. His impact, however, I wasn't too sure. But so far, he's without a doubt, undoubtedly the best defensive lineman Tennessee has at the moment right now. But there's a lot of love to give to right now. There's so much more to give. Bud Dupree came and had a spectacular game with a few little flaws, but it was pretty close to being spectacular. Getting after the quarterback was the key thing there. And Dupree was relentless in his pursuit, and ending up with a sack was just the icing on the cake of the day. You know, all the hard work that he's put in is showing that he's getting ready and progressing as the season moves on. And I'm excited to see what he's going to continue to bring if he can keep his knee from not being an issue. And the good thing is, it's not like he came into this where he knew he was probably going to have to do a lot. You know, Jeffrey Simmons is also there to help. But you also think on the opposite end, right now, probably the best defensive end the Tennessee Titans have at this point is Harold Landry. And once again, Landry comes out and plays amazing, getting pressure on the quarterback, ending up with a sack at the end of the day. The man is continuing to make a case why he needs a long-term deal. And if I'm the Titans, I'm trying to work as hard as I can to get an extension lined up. He has the ability, he has the playmaking ability, and he's very just in tune with this. And I think with Jim Schwartz, being a consultant, that's the kind of guys he likes. He loves teachable players, and that's one thing Schwartz has never been credited to throughout his tenure. He's very good at selecting guys with a high football IQ, and Harold Landry has a very high football IQ. It's just been hard to try and place him in the right place because Harold Landry has always been the guy to do everything by himself. So the defensive line continues to impress. And I'm also going to give another little shout out. And to me, this is a pretty big one. And I'm happy I can say this, because this puts a smile on my face. You know, Rashaan Evans doesn't get a lot of love. And he's been a consistent nightmare at times on the field and a liability. But anytime you get a guy that makes a key contributing play, you got to give him props. And the interception that he was able to grab, being at the right place at the right time, that just shows it's nice to be lucky sometimes. And it's also nice to see that he's actually getting some well-deserved work and making it pay off. Because when Evans was drafted here, we wanted a guy that was going to be able to be a playmaker. Somebody that was going to be a difference maker on the defense and be a vocal voice. And Jayon Brown, we thought, was that voice, but unfortunately injuries continue to be a problem for him. And with Evans, it's just been inconsistent play after inconsistent play. In fact, throughout the whole year, he's been one of the worst graded defensive players on the line. So you have to just think, especially with the addition of a former player that had already been here, and Avery Williamson, that his days are numbered. So I like the fact that he came out and he played a really decent game. And that getting that interception was definitely a selling point, that there's a little turn there. It's not a big one, but it's enough to get some focal point there, and it's enough to make you notice it. So I hope he continues to strive through that, and I hope it's a situation where he's going to continue to learn from this, and I know he'll continue to take coaching from Shane Bowen, who really just put on a clinic of a defensive coordinating play calling standard. It was just brilliantly done, and the fact that they held the Chiefs out of the end zone the entire game is something unheard of. In an Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era, that's never happened. That's never even been a possibility of thought. And if it was, and if they were on that field, more than likely it was a preseason game. So, Tennessee balled out and gave a brilliant performance. And of course, giving all of the love to the defense, I've got to give a shout out to the offense. Once again, Derrick Henry didn't have a phenomenal day, but it was a solid day. It was a day where he got work done. And rushing 29 attempts, 86 yards, that was enough to help make a difference. And Kansas City did everything they could to try and stop them. They loaded the box. They had 8 and 9 in the box, and it was a consistent theme all day. So they were well-earned, hard-fought yards. But Derrick Henry did manage to make everybody just kind of just shake their heads and drop their jaws. Playing close on a goal line stand, Henry runs towards the end zone, looks right before getting across the line of scrimmage, takes a little hop, throws a pass right up in the air and landing right in the hands of Michael Pruitt for a 5-yard touchdown. And that to me was probably just the play of the week. You know, when you have a player that can play in a wildcat option, and Henry continues to just show why he's battling to try and be seen as an MVP player. And I have no doubt that any running back should have an opportunity to win the MVP, and Derrick Henry very well deserves to be in that conversation. And yes, Tighten Up Podcast, once again, the MV King, which was chanted a lot in the stadium, and I believe will continue to be chanted as time goes on. And in these situations, you know, Derrick Henry's going to continue to play. I think he's going to continue to get his yards, especially whatever team they match up against. So, going forward, it's going to be a matchup thing. I expect teams to continue to load the box. But the thing is, what made this game work was Ryan Tannehill was able to get the ball all over the field. And A.J. Brown was a big part of the game plan. And A.J., especially having to fight through food poisoning, I'm sorry you've had to go through that. I've had food poisoning. It is not fun. Believe me, you don't want to be anywhere standing where there's not a toilet. So you have my sympathy. But fighting through that, A.J. Brown had a tremendous game. 8 catches, 133 yards, and a touchdown. Kansas City had no answer for him. And even Julio Jones making a big contribution, taking some pressure off of A.J. Brown and the tight ends as well. And this is what the offense is meant to be set up as. And I know this will continue to progress as the season goes forward. It's important to remember that Julio Jones was brought in to not only help the Tennessee Titans get and win a Super Bowl, but also to help take the pressure off some of their key component guys. Off A.J. Brown, off Derrick Henry. And I know it started out slow, but this is what the Tennessee Titans envisioned as the season progressed. That this was going to help one player, maybe two, maybe even all of them in certain circumstances, to get out there and spread the ball and keep the defenses on their toes. Todd Downing's offense worked wonderfully. Shane Bowen's defense was lights out. And I'm going to give props to the special teams as well. Randy Bullock did his job. And that's what we need, is a kicker to stay consistent and help put points on the board when we need. And Brent Kern returning from the COVID list, helping get out there, got 2 punts right along the 5-yard line at least 2 times, helping set up great field position for the defense. So consistency-wise, this is going to be something Tennessee has to continue to grow off of. And we'll break down the Titans-Colts game a little bit later. But I do have to say this point. These are the kind of games that set up long-term success. They have to be built on when you have the opportunity to put these kind of statement games in place. Tennessee just didn't accidentally beat Buffalo. They didn't just coast through and beat the Chiefs. This was well-executed game preparation. And this was what the Titans envisioned going through the season. That they were going to have to play physical, they were going to have to play smart, and they were going to have to play with a lot of passion. And I saw all that yesterday. And it's going to take all of that, especially to try and get through this final 3 games of the gauntlet that we have, and even more so throughout the season. Best quote I heard yesterday, they don't give out Super Bowls at mid-season. And believe me, the hardest is yet to come. But I like what I've seen, and I feel confident that this team, if they continue to build off the little things, if they continue to keep Tannehill upright, if Derrick Henry continues to get his yards, I have no doubt in my mind that this team is going to continue to do great things. But it's an effort that's going to have to continue on all 3 sides of the ball. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick 30-second break, and when I come back, I'm bringing out a new segment called Whoa and No. We'll explain what that means. 30 seconds from here. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power Hour. Back in 30. As the new NFL season dawns upon us, Tennessee Titan fans have the ultimate desire, and that desire is to see their team hoist the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the season. And through it all, we expect a lot of great highs and maybe even a little lows. But it all comes to one thing, that we all love the two-tone blue. And going forward, fans are looking for something fresh, something new, something exciting. Looking for a show that's going to give you all the stats, highlights, and accolades that you're looking for? Well, it's time to jump into the new revolution. That is the Power Hour. The Power Hour is on the air, live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me this Monday evening. Chris Newell of Titans and Truth was supposed to be my guest. I'm still trying to get a hold of him. I don't know if there's just a problem with communication on my end, or if he's not able to get on the link. I'm still going to continue to try. Hopefully we can get him on before the show's over. So I apologize for that. Hopefully as I said, we're able to get him on. But we'll continue the show until we can try and figure something out. But I'm trying to get him on here before the end. So my apologies for that, and we'll continue once again to try and get him on. All right, guys, I have a new segment, and this is called Whoa and No. And generally, this is just a segment where I like being on social media all the time. And by the way, if you love the show, help it grow. I have many different sites that I'm on. Follow me at the Power Hour 615. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and on TikTok every Tuesday through Friday with my small presentations called PowerPoints, giving you small 3-minute windows of just current news and events as the day goes on. And sometimes I just like posting little videos just to give you a taste. And sometimes, if you are following me on TikTok, you'll get an early glimpse of my upcoming guest for the following show. So follow us all on there at the Power Hour 615. Well, guys, I definitely wanted to get into this new one, and it's called Whoa and No. And first off, it's just a scenario where I like finding little tweets or little comments, and they're very just interesting to me. So we'll start out with the woe part. Coming in the little spot. Here's our woe of the day. Tweeted from Rhett Bryan, and Rhett Bryan is with Titans Radio, saying, no wonder the Titans dominated Kansas City. They won time of possession, third down, explosive plays, turnovers, and the Titans' defensive front is starting to gain some traction. And I agree with everything right here. And these are all keys of why Tennessee was successful yesterday. And I know very well this is probably what Vrabel and especially all the coordinators are trying to teach the team as they go throughout the season. This is what it takes to consistently win. This is how you win consistently. And you have to practice this and preach it every day. We all know you have to win time possession, and Tennessee dominated on it. They won on third down plays. Granted, they missed a couple, but at the same time, when it counted, especially when momentum was on their side, they handled business. Explosive plays, all you can say, it was all day for most of the first quarter. They just made explosive plays. So, turnovers as well. You gotta just give credit where credit's due. When you practice what you preach, the results show themselves. And great tweet, giving a shout out to Rhett Bryan. Love his stuff, love him on Titans Radio. Making a very, very solid point there. And here's my woe factor. So, our woe definitely kind of starts out giving some good vibes, getting a good idea of things. But then we got our no part. And I'm pretty sure you can figure out what the no is going to be. So throwing the no up, this put up by No Context Tennessee Titans. This dude's really cool. He puts up like little clips of like Titans plays. I love the fact that he has like a clip for just about everything. I'm pretty sure if you have any kind of play that the Tennessee Titans made, this guy will find it. I guarantee you, just check his site out. Any kind of random thing you can think of, type it in. I think he can find it. Or he'll make it. One way or the other, he'll have it up. So, once again, No Context Tennessee Titans brought up this stat with two websites basically giving props that the Colts were going to more likely win next week's game on their home turf. We're 538.com having the Colts at a 54% win possibility, and then also giving the Titans a 46% win possibility in the NFL Week 8 game, while ESPN gave them a 53.7% chance to win. And the site's PowerPoint Index gave the Titans a 45.9% chance to pick up the victory in Week 8. So, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, and let's just be honest. Everybody was counting us out the last few weeks anyway. I don't expect that to change. I don't expect that to be any kind of thing shocking. But especially after you've knocked off what was the best team in the AFC and the defending the AFC champions. Should we really be that surprised that everybody, especially in the bigger sections, are trying to count us out? And I'm glad that the team's not going to take too much stock in this. I'm glad they're not going to try and give it thought or just give it life by breathing anything into it, life-wise. But it just goes to show, while the Titans continue to get no respect on certain aspects and certain sites, I still have to wonder how they think a Colts team that right now sits at 3-4 with a lot of questionable things going on right now is better in that aspect. And I've been honest throughout that process. I do not feel comfortable with Carson Wentz as a quarterback. I never was really that high on him, especially when he was with Philadelphia. I thought after the injury, he was really just one of those guys that was in a good system, but along the lines, he was a turnover liability. And it's hard to say what the Colts are going to be going down the road. But knowing this, it's just a situation where Tennessee's going to have to be prepared with all three phases of the game. And I'm not going to get too much into it because that's going to be our final segment, and we'll just get to that shortly thereafter. But I just find it laughable. It's funny to me. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. So it's just one of those situations you're basically just going to have to go and just grin and bear it. But, I mean, that's the life of a Tennessee Titan fan. You know, we don't get respect where it's due, and especially when we get wins or in situations we think that are winnable, it just seems everybody kind of wants to count us out. And I'd rather be the underdog than anything. It's not going to bother me, and it shouldn't bother you as well. I can live with it. Well, all right, guys. Got through that segment. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll definitely try and get some more on that. Going to continue to try and get Titans and Truth in here. I do apologize for the delay. I'm hoping that we can get them in for the last bit of the show. I take responsibility for that. So we'll continue to do what we can. But we'll take a quick break right now. And when we come back, we'll get ready and break down our Week 8 picks right here on the Power Hour. I'm Michael Bishop, back in 30. The Power is on the air, live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me this Monday evening. Chris Newell of Titans and Truth was supposed to be our guest. I'm continuing to see what the situation is. Hopefully we can get him in before the show ends. I do apologize for the inconvenience. I know some of you were hoping to hear from him. I don't know if it's something on my end or if it was the wrong time, but I take responsibility for that. It's my show. It's my schedule. I'll own up to that. But I do thank you for joining me. We continue to move on. Getting ready for our Week 8 picks. Let's throw it on the little screen. Let's go. All right, guys. Bringing up our Week 8 predictions. I am very excited to get this going, and especially after a pretty good week from my standpoint. All right, let's go. Our Thursday night game. 8:20 on Fox. A really good matchup. Probably the best Thursday night game we've had right now. I might even go say this might be the Thursday night game of the year. Arizona Cardinals with the Green Bay Packers taking the trip down to the beautiful stadium that they are in. I love this matchup. I think it's going to be an offensive shootout. This may be very well a remembrance of the Thursday night game that was played against the Rams and the Chiefs not only a few years ago, and that thing went up to the 50s. I could see this thing getting up to the 50s. But unfortunately, I think Arizona is going to stay undefeated. I think everything is going in their favor. I think they're going to be pushing Green Bay to continue to score points, but it's going to be a situation to see who blinks first. Arizona is very confident and very strong. So I like this. Give them the win. Then breaking into our Sunday lineup, Happy Halloween on October 31st. Breaking down our first game. It'll be a 1 o'clock matchup on Fox. It'll be the Atlanta Falcons with the Carolina Panthers visiting at 1 o'clock. And I had a hard time going with this one. I didn't know who exactly was going to be the go-to here. Carolina has just plummeted after a quick start. And it's really hard to say what to make of Atlanta. I think they're going to grow under Arthur Smith. But it's just very confusing to try and pick these two. And I feel confident-wise that Atlanta's the team here that you're going to see make the difference. I think they've got enough quarterbacks. I think they've got enough quarterback confidence, as I would call it, for Matt Ryan to handle this game. So I'll give Atlanta the win at home. No biggie. We'll keep it there. Then a 1 o'clock game on CBS, we have the Buffalo Bills with the Miami Dolphins visiting. And Miami is just a wreck right now. I don't know what they're going to do, especially in terms of a possible trade with Deshaun Watson, with so many question marks there. You just have to kind of figure Miami might end up being in sell mode after this game. And I would do that. It just feels like they just came out and everything just fell apart for them. They're just trying to get a feel of what's going to work long term. So I wouldn't put it above Miami to have a shot, but I feel Buffalo is going to bounce back big here. Giving the home team the win, Buffalo gets it. Miami struggles, and they might have to consider selling at the deadline. Then as we move forward, we have our 1 o'clock matchup on Fox with the San Francisco 49ers taking a trip to the Chicago Bears. And what a mess it was, especially for Justin Fields, getting really just his first bad NFL game. And now he's going to go up against a San Francisco team, which I think's pretty underrated. And if they can keep their consistency at quarterback, they have a chance at getting in a wild card spot. So, looking at this game, I just feel confident on the road team here. So, San Francisco, I give them the win. I think Chicago's starting to regress, and it's showing each week. So, can Justin Fields bounce back? I think is a good question as well. But I don't think he's going to play well enough to get a hold of San Francisco. San Francisco gets this one easily. Then a 1 o'clock matchup on CBS. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking a trip to the Cleveland Browns. I love it when these two teams play together. There's so much history. There's so much hate. And the last couple of years has been pretty entertaining. So you feel the sense that one of these two teams has to get some momentum here, especially being a division matchup. So which one right now do you trust going forward? I know with Baker Mayfield's shoulder, there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts. But which one do I feel more confident in placing my trust long term? So let's think of it this way. If I had to take a shot, I'm going to go with a team that's had more consistent quarterback play. That would be the smart thing to do. But here's the thing. I'm going with the consistent quarterback play of Ben Roethlisberger. Even after he's struggled this season, I am giving Pittsburgh the road win over the Cleveland Browns. Then our next 1 o'clock matchup on Fox, it'll be the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Detroit Lions. And the Detroit Lions are in a state of woe. They're trying to do whatever they can to get a win. It seems like they keep getting close, and they just can't get the pieces put in place. So, what is going to be the difference here? Here's the scary part. I think it's a situation that comes up where both teams are struggling. I think Philadelphia's been struggling as well. So my big question here is, what is going to be the process to get things moving forward to get this situation righted? Who's the team that's going to stand up and make the difference? And right now, I feel confident enough, and I don't throw upsets out like this, but I've got a hunch, and I'm going to go with my hunch. And my hunch is Detroit gets their first win of the season. I feel Detroit is able to take the Eagles to a close game, get the win. I will call this the upset of the week. Detroit upsets the Philadelphia Eagles, getting a home win, and finally getting a little relief from all the pressure they've had. Then moving on to our next 1 o'clock game, we have the New York Jets with the Cincinnati Bengals visiting. And the Bengals just annihilated the Ravens. And I don't even have a word for how bad that was. I watched the highlights of that, and I am just very impressed with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. And I knew they were going to have a pretty good setup. So for me, it was a situation where I have no doubt here. The Jets are coming off a situation. They've lost their quarterback for a long period of time. Joe Flacco steps in after being traded, but he's going to have to learn that system. And he's basically going to have to wing it. And this isn't the old Joe Flacco of the 2010s. So Cincinnati rolls here. I'm comfortable with saying the road team moves. Catching my drift, a lot of road team upsets. That's how it goes. We'll continue and move forward. Then on a 4:05 matchup on CBS, we have the LA Chargers with the New England Patriots visiting. No question here. I just feel more comfortable with the Chargers. I think New England, there's just something missing. I just don't know what it is. They just aren't connecting the way you think they were. And especially with all the free agent acquisitions that they made, they just haven't hit. And that's the hard part. You see a team that just hasn't hit, and it's just frustrating. So, really, I'm just going to go with the Chargers here. I like the home team in this one. New England just has a lot of problems that are just being very underlined. So, Chargers getting the home win. Then another 4:05 matchup on CBS. The Seattle Seahawks with the Jacksonville Jaguars traveling in to face them. And I have no doubt that this one's not going to go be pretty, so it seems like a safe bet here. I like Seattle, even in the backup situation. I continue to see Jacksonville grow as a team. I can think they're just going to do what they need to do and handle their business, no problem. I think Jacksonville's going to grow, and they're going to continue to grow. But even with a Seattle team with a backup quarterback, I like them. I will give Seattle the win at home. Then a 4:25 matchup on Fox, I believe. That would be the matchup of the Washington football team taking a trip to the Denver Broncos. I don't know about this one. I just see defensively, I see a situation defensively where there's a lot going on. Defensively, both these teams have played decent at times. But the quarterback play has just been very inconsistent. Who do I feel better about is a pretty big scenario right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and go with Denver at home. It seems the safe pick there. Washington has just not been the team that I think they've been or need to be. So I'll take the safe bet here and just go with Denver. So moving forward to 4:25 p.m. matchup on CBS as well. This one's definitely going to get a little more interesting. Well, I'm sorry, it's a 4:25 matchup on Fox. So the Tampa Bay Bucks take a trip to the New Orleans Saints, and there's nothing here to say. It's Tampa Bay's rolling, and it's usually kind of crazy to see things just kind of flow. I don't mind saying that New Orleans has a chance, but this isn't the New Orleans team with Drew Brees playing quarterback. So Tampa Bay gets the road win here. Easy setup. Then our 8:20 matchup on NBC. Sunday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys, who are on a hot streak, take a trip to the Minnesota Vikings to try and match up their record to get 6 wins. And I think they do. I like what Dallas has done. I like the fact that they are moving the ball consistently. I like that their defense is playing extremely well. It's playing at consistency that matters, though. And while Minnesota, to me, has had moments to show pretty good stuff and that they're a pretty tough team, I still got to go with the Cowboys in this one. I think they're going to handle business. No problem there. As long as they can continue to let Dak Prescott play the way he needs to play, and the defense continues to play dominantly. And then getting to our Monday Night Football matchup on November 1st, first new game of the month, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs with the New York Giants coming for a visit. 8:15 on ESPN. So, I am not going with the Giants because every time I pick them, they lose. And every time I don't pick them, they lose. So, me and the Giants aren't on talking terms. But at the same time, I can't overlook the fact that Kansas City's defense is just absolutely garbage. So, who do I feel better about? Honestly, I'll go with Kansas City. But I just have a feeling if Patrick Mahomes can't be more consistent, then the Chiefs are in trouble. I will go with the Chiefs, but I'm very, very hesitant about it. And that, my friends, is the Week 8 picks. And I've got so many comments lining up, and I will read them real quick before our next segment. Bryce Pratt, can you follow me on Twitter? Of course, man. I'm more than happy to follow you on Twitter. I'll do that as soon as I finish up here. So keep an eye on that. And we do have an update on Titans in Truth. And he says, I'm feeling some of these picks, and I'm glad we heard of him, which he said he owes a serious apology and he needs to make it up. And I understand there's just certain things that happen, so that's no problem. You've emailed me, and I'll definitely get back in touch with you. And we'll try and make this right. That's no problem. I understand things happen. I'll take blame for that. It's my job to make sure you're informed of what times to be ready for. And believe me, there's a lot of things on my end I could have done better. So I'll own up to that. That's on me. So you don't have to worry about that. We'll get in touch. We'll handle that. No worries. So don't think too much of it. We'll figure it out as we go along. But guys, I've got one more segment to get to, and that's going to be our matchup against the Titans and the Colts. We'll take a quick 30-second break, and as soon as I get back, we'll break that down. I'm Michael Bishop with the Power Hour. Thank you for watching me, and we will be back in 30 seconds. The Power is on the air, live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm your host, Michael Bishop, and thank you for joining me this Monday evening. It's been a good show. I'm glad everybody's been able to come out and watch. And I just wanted to remind you to make sure and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch at the Power Hour 615. I have daily TikToks every Tuesday through Friday called PowerPoints. So definitely make sure you give those a check. I'll always have something to talk about, and sometimes I just put up videos, and if you're lucky, you'll usually catch a glimpse of who I'll have on the show the upcoming week. Well, guys, it's time to talk about the game that we all care about, the interest game of this channel, and here we go, bringing it up, Titans at the Colts, 1 o'clock on CBS. Big matchup coming up, and I think this is a game that everybody has to try and take care of. So it is imperative that this team is prepared and standing forward moving on this game, especially with the points I'm about to make. So we all know in this scenario, Tennessee is going to have to play for the next 3 games the best that they can. Coming into the gauntlet, I knew if Tennessee could win at least 3 of the 5, you feel confident going forward. But the biggest thing is I knew the Colts game could possibly be a trap game. I know a lot of people didn't realize that we'd be 2-0 coming into this 5-game stretch. But it's imperative to get this thing down just right, especially this being a division game. So it's simple to say that it can be overlooked. And the Colts can be very well overlooked, especially the fact they're not playing up to the hype that they should be. And Let's Tighten Up Podcast says, I had us going 4-1 during the stretch after the loss to the Jets. And I definitely felt that way, especially going forward. But I knew, realistically, with inside me, especially with 2 road games, that was going to be the deal breaker. Because Tennessee plays well on the road. But the thing is, it's like, which Tennessee team are we going to get? And we take in consideration, especially the Jets game. But that's in the past, so you kind of got to see it as a perspective. Tennessee knows that the Colts are still a dangerous team, even though they're 3-4. The difference here is they're going to have to play even more physical than they played them in the home matchup. They're going to have to force turnovers. They're going to have to get Carson Wentz uncomfortable. They're going to have to play well on special teams, defense, and offense in order for this to work. And it is vital that they handle all aspects of this on every side of the ball. Saying that, I feel confident enough that Tennessee is going to handle business. I know Mike Vrabel is a great motivator. And right now, at this point of the season, Tennessee needs to be locked in more than ever. Division games mean more, especially in a weak division we have right now. So coming into this, it's going to be a motivation thing. If they can handle Indy, you feel a lot more confident, especially knowing we still have 2 games against Houston and we have 1 game against Jacksonville. So I feel, even with everything on the line, and even the potential of a trap game, because this has the buildings of one, I think Vrabel gets the team prepared. I think mentally they're feeling good about themselves. I know they're not looking too far ahead. Tennessee handles business easily here. So give the Titans a win on the road against the Colts, and I'll throw even a score to make it interesting. Titans win the game 28-14. And guys, it is once again great to have everybody talking on the show. Try and read some of your comments before we finish everything up. Let's Tighten Up Podcast. I had us going 4-1 during a stretch from the loss to the Jets. I definitely see that. Ryan Harris, what up? How are you doing, Ryan? Great having you on the show, buddy. Saying, big opportunity to take care of the division. Can't give the Colts a chance of thinking they can win this division. And I agree. The scary thing is the Colts do think that they have a chance. But I even think even if Tennessee does lose a division game, it can't be against the Colts. You can give one away against Houston or even Jacksonville, unfortunately. And I could live with that, because right now they're not in any position to do any kind of damage. I don't see Jacksonville making a huge surge to get up to the top. I don't even see that for Houston. Let's be honest, that's not going to happen. It's just us and Indy right now. And if you have to beat anybody, it's got to be Indy. Indy is the end-all, be-all of trying to win the division. And even with it being a trap game, I still feel confident enough Tennessee will be prepared. Vrabel is a master coach in trying to get his team prepared, especially in big game situations. So I give him all the credit in the world for that, and I'm pretty sure they'll handle business. Well, all right, everybody. I want to thank everybody that's watched the show tonight. I know it was unfortunate we didn't get Titans and Truth on here, but unfortunate things happen, and he has gotten a hold of me. It's no big deal. We'll try and get him on at another time. These things happen, and you just kind of just take the good with the bad. I definitely will get him ready for next time when he does get in, and we'll have some good questions set up. I take the blame on that. That's my fault. So it's no big deal. we'll get him in here some point this upcoming month. We'll try and work something out. So it's no problem. I apologize for that on my end. I'm responsible for the show and the itinerary, so I'll own that. But I do thank you all for watching tonight. I know everybody's on cloud nine, and I'm very excited, especially as we continue to progress forward as the season moves, and we want to see something special. And just the sense of something special is in the air. So, saying that, it's just great to have everyone on the same page, and let's continue this success that we're trying to strive forward long term. So don't forget, you can follow me at the Power Hour 615 on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. I'm also on TikTok with the same address. Check out my PowerPoints every Tuesday through Friday. And don't forget to watch the YouTube channel as every new video comes out on Monday. Well, I'm Michael Bishop of the Power Hour. Thank you for watching tonight. Have a great night and an even better tomorrow. Take care and tighten up.
Thank you for watching the Power Hour. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more content. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok at the Power Hour 615. Thank you and have a great night.